probably going to be rehashing what we already talked about, but Len, how did this all develop on you ending up at the University of Southern California?
Right. So it was really simply, I was watching the Super Bowl, actually at the Virginia's running backs coach's house. And he just told me, USC's defensive staff had been let go, and looked up who was the DC, and it was Coach Orlando. And my personal history with Orlando is I never met him, but I had studied Houston and studied Texas film because they played similar opponents and did a really good job against Lamar Jackson, who was in our conference at the time, and did a lot of in-depth research on what he did with 3 down and 4 down fronts. So the name I knew, and then just followed him on Twitter, and he told me, hey, let's talk after the game, and we talked after the game, and that was all.
I think people will be surprised, something like that happened kind of through Twitter, right?
Right.
But that's kind of where we are right now nowadays. People ask me for phone numbers of recruits, and I'm like, gosh, I haven't really talked. I do everything through social media.
Right. And my family has asked questions, and friends have asked questions, but I think at the end of the day, there has to be a body of work that at least puts you in the mind of somebody, hiring. And the past 4 years, at Virginia, we did a lot of good things, and just fortunate to be here and excited to get after it.
Coach, how are you? Give us an update. Unfortunately, you haven't had a lot of time around the campus, but are you all moved in? You get all those boxes unpacked?
Yeah, we actually lucked out. So my family actually showed up the Sunday before everything got shut down. And so the movers were already on their way. So we got to, actually move in and get everything unpacked, and tried a lot of local restaurants. That's kind of basically what we've been doing the past, a few weeks, with in between Zoom meetings and recruiting, is trying all the food around here.
You are there on the South Bay. What restaurant have you found that's your favorite so far?
Ooh, restaurant that's my favorite. I don't really have.
Let's put it this way. Which one knows you the best, but because you've been ordering there the most?
Oh, shoot. It's probably really generic. We actually go to California Pizza Kitchen a lot, and so they probably know our order before we call. So I've been there a ton, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Keeping it on the food note, I got to ask you. I'm kind of disappointed. What happened to your crew in the Big Man Cook-Off?
Oh,
they got smoked.
I know, they got smoked like a brisket. I don't know. we even had pep talks. I pep talked them right before the first weekend, and then we went over, and then we put all our chips behind Brandon Peely, and then
right.
He got spanked. So yeah, I don't know what happened. I do believe, though, if there was a taste test, some things look good, but if there was a taste test, some of those guys, Jake threw down a big old steak. I think if you could taste it, we'd obviously win, but
right.
We obviously can't judge it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just say that the stakes were stacked against you. Drevno and his crew have been together a little bit longer than you've had a chance to coach your guys up. So
right.
You'll get them next year.
Yeah.
There was something I wanted to ask you real quick, on a personal level. Being a Twitter king, are you the guy who's in charge of the guys tweeting for the staff? And I bring it up because one of the things that caught my eye was when you were explaining to one of your kids from The Lion King, the death scene. How are you using today, what's going on today, to talk about it with your kids?
Oh yeah. So first part, I don't know. The social media, we kind of just be ourselves.
Right.
I think it's one of the things that recruits can see, and coaches and parents can see, is just a real upfront and personal type of account for a lot of our coaches, you know. And then as far as teaching my kids, it's been difficult, you know, explaining to them and showing them things because they're at different ages. So my 9-year-old understands things that are different than, you know, my 4-year-old. He just turned 4 a couple days ago. So using things like Disney has been, or relating things to, you know, different things has kind of been what we have used just for the understanding point. And I talk to my 9-year-old different than I talk to my 7-year-old or 6-year-old or 4-year-old or 2-year-old, right?
Right.
But there are a bunch of tools, and a lot of families that we've talked to and a lot of our friends have shared, you know, different things that they've done in these times of teaching them, you know, bringing them up the right way.
Yeah, it's got to be a really tough time, you know, taking a snapshot of what's going on right now to try and find the right words to help it relate to, like you said, to all these different age groups that you're working with just in your own household.
Right.
You know, whatever you're working with inside the locker room. So yeah, there's a lot on your plate, obviously.
How challenging has this time been for you as a coaching staff, especially the defensive staff, to try and coordinate the guys and show them, you know, what this new defense that they're learning is all about?
Right. I don't think it's as difficult showing them what's going to happen. You know, I think that's all we can do right now is show them. So as far as schematically, that's not a challenge. But on the coaching standpoint, accountability has probably been the hardest thing. You know, when you go out to practice or you go out to a walkthrough and you misstep or you go the complete wrong direction, or you do something great, you know, celebrating simple successes we haven't been able to do. And we haven't been able to go out there and go through the growing pains of understanding the defense physically. Mentally, I think, you know, it's been 90 plus days around there. You know, we've met and talked about the ins and outs of the defense, watched film on film, and challenged, you know, each one of our guys to understand the defense. It's just getting out there and doing it. That's the hardest part, especially for our defense and installing something brand new to them. So that's been the difficult part.
What should we expect to see from a Vic Sohoto coached defensive line?
Man, I think it's more of a feeling. I think you'll feel it and see it. You know, I just hope that by the time we get to, you know, kick off against Alabama, that these guys understand how to play the game the right way. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is the guys understand that being a defensive lineman is not the, you know, the patty cake drills and the foot ladder and all these cool things that are trendy right now, right?
Yeah.
And doing these spins and all this, that ain't it. You know, you got to go through a grown man that's bigger than you, and sometimes two of them. And once they understand that and grasp that, they can feed off of playing violent and being physical all the time. And so my wish for them is obviously to reach their potential, but to do it through violence and physicality.
Nice. I love when you say violence. You've got that smile. So it's either, you know, that smile either brings you in or it scares the heck out of you. It's one of those things that I don't know how to describe it other than it's sociopath, and I love it.
Hey, well, Fred Batua one time said it's legalized assault.
There you go.
I can go out there and beat up on somebody and I don't get arrested.
You know, Coach, you were recently selected to the AFCA, the American Football Coaches Association, 35 under 35 Coaches Leadership Institute. Can you talk about that and what that means to you and some of the, you know, some of the ideas you've gotten from that organization?
Yeah, it was a great honor, to be able to go to that. But then to be put in a room with guys that are around your age, going through some similar things. There's head coaches and D coordinators and position coaches, and being able to just rub shoulders with them. It reminded me of going to the NFL, and jumping in a room with a lot of really talented guys, and understanding, oh, this is the competition. Like, oh, this is what it feels like, or this is, who I'm competing against. But then in that setting, it was more of, oh, this is who can help me, and this is who I can help, and it turned into more of a brotherhood of sorts, being, our class,
Right.
and taking the game to another level. I think it's great, and I think the applications were actually started last week or a couple days ago, and I just think, as a young coach, being able to be around other young coaches and talk about some similar things as far as the growing pains of being a young coach, and then having a family and all that, I think is invaluable.
Interesting. I never even thought of it from that perspective, that, you have your own little peer group within your peer group, kind of as a support group.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. So when I got the job at SC, a lot of the guys that reached out to me were from that, it's from the AFCA 35 under 35, and guys have moved since, there too, from other places, and I've reached out to them and congratulated them on different things. Hopefully this, coaching thing goes for a long, long time, and we end up creating, deeper bonds. But it was a great experience.
That's really cool. Going back to your college days, you were one of those guys, depending on how you look at it, you were either fortunate or unfortunate, that you received one of those 6 years of eligibility because of injuries. First of all, how good of a tight end could you have been? And what precipitated the change to actually just go from offense strictly to defense?
Right. The tight end aspect, you could actually probably ask Graham. I played a little bit of tight end when a couple of the tight ends went down in Green Bay. I probably would have been a blocking tight end, but kind of what facilitated the offense to defense move was just the logjam we had at tight end. We had Dennis Pitta, who ended up getting drafted and had a really good career until he hurt his hip, and then we had another all-league player behind him, and we were all the same class, so we were all sophomores.
Got it.
So then jumping over to defense, it was pretty easy. I played linebacker in high school. I played both ways, linebacker and tight end. And so jumping over to defense, it was strictly at outside linebacker. Because of injuries on the team, I ended up playing defensive line and learning the 3-4 3-down system, right?
Okay.
And so, yeah, my college career ended up starting games at 4 different positions, and it gave me a broader knowledge of football. So as a coach, an upcoming coach, to be able to sit in on both sides of offense and defense in a similar system that Coach Harrell has with Robert Denai's system, who was actually, I think he was the O-line coach there at when Graham was at Texas Tech, So understanding those concepts of the air raid, and then switching over to defense and understanding the concepts of how to try and stop the air raid in practice at least, and then learning the 3-down was, again, another invaluable lesson.
Yeah, and having to come back from all those injuries, I'm sure you have zero patience for people who come up with excuses of why things can't get done. So,
yeah, I think again, as a coach, as a player, it sucks getting injured, and it sucked going for 6 years. It was like I felt like I was almost a graduate assistant to my teammates because they seemed so much younger than I was. But going through injury, it helped me to see the other side, of stepping away from football if that was taken away from you. And so we actually had a team position meeting before this And that was one of the topics was, well, what happens if football is taken away from you? Are you ready? Like, can you be a productive citizen, you know, in your community and provide for a family if football was taken away from you? And so being injured, it sucked at the time, but the lessons that I learned from it and the way that I can level with guys now is, look, I've been in your shoes, you know, I think is another invaluable lesson. Seeing the bus go away while you're sitting and doing treatment, like that hurts, you know. Seeing your guys go out and perform and having to wait for them to come back from an away game, like that hurts. Like the pain of that hurts, and a lot of guys fall into, you know, depression-like symptoms when they get into something like that. And so I'm very aware of guys that get injured, especially season-long injuries, to check up on them, make sure they're doing well, even if they're saying they're doing okay, you know, taking a lunch or something. Just because I know what it's been, what it's like.
Coach, there's when you listen to guys like Urban Meyer talk and Nick Saban and others, and talking about how they choose to hire their coaches, they don't hire guys that can't recruit. And just some of the feedback I've gotten, when you were at the University of Virginia, there were guys considering the University of Virginia strictly because of you, because they hadn't had a chance to really see the campus and all that kind of stuff. So obviously whatever you're doing is working. And what I'm interested in is, what are some of the important components for you with recruiting?
As far as being a recruiter or the recruiter?
Yeah, I mean, from your perspective, you know, from your end, some of the important components for the methods that you implement.
Right. Simply, I'm just me. I like to be upfront, and I've always wanted real relationships, right? Whether I was being the one being recruited or being the recruiter. And I think you go through these recruiting calls, and it's 16, 17-year-old kids, you know, and it's not so much trying to relate to them, but to show them the value that you could add to them, you know, I think is the biggest thing, especially for these guys that have everybody in the country. You know, what is the value that you can add? What is the value this person across from you can add? And like I was saying, with all those different things in my life, playing, I can relate to a ton of different people and add value to a lot of different kids just based on either my playing career in the league or my playing career in college with injuries, switching sides of the ball, living across the country, was in 6 different cities. So more than likely, you know, the kid's favorite team is probably one that I've been on. But then at the end of the day, just having real conversations and real interactions that mean something. I think what gets lost in this recruiting game is a lot of guys are, I don't want to say a lot of guys, but there is a salesmanship to it. But for me, it's more of relating and helping and treating them like, and talking to them like I'd talk to, you know, one of my nephews or younger cousins, you know. And so being genuine and being upfront and creating real relationships is you know, my foundation of how I recruit, I guess.
You were at the University of Virginia, an elite academic institution. You're now at USC. How much does selling what USC has to offer these kids, other than football, how does that resonate with? How are you finding that's resonating with the kids?
Yeah, I think USC. The greatest thing about being at USC is there's already a reputation that precedes anything that you're going to say, right? Whether it's the reputation on the football field or the reputation in the classroom. And so more so what I'm finding is it's discovery and uncovering, you know, the diamonds that are here, rather than bringing them to a play and like showing them, well, this is what we have, and trying to really give them that first impression. A lot of these kids have a first impression of what USC is, and academically has usually been the second thing that we talk about, right? it's the Reggie Bush, Matt Leinertz, and all that, and then it's, well, did you know? And the ones that are informed, you know, it's okay. Well, let's go down to what do you want to study, right? And let's look at that. Those that don't know, then it creates this huge opportunity to, you know, inform them and educate them on how high of an academic institution USC is.
When you're out there recruiting and you're talking about USC and her history and the tradition, when the subject comes up of Junior Seau, you were talking about cousins, is that a difficult conversation for you, or is it something that you can easily talk about now?
No, it's not difficult. I think it's really easy for me to talk about. Like, again, when I talk to recruits, I talk to them like their family, right? And so any question isn't off the table, and then my job is to educate and teach. And so teaching, you know, about Junior Seau isn't difficult at all. I think a lot of lessons can be learned from anybody's life, but someone that's a relative and was such a iconic figure in the Polynesian community, especially, right? Not only in the NFL, it's easy to talk about how he lived and the impact and the ripple effect that he had on a lot of people and the good things. So Junior, in my mind, you know, I grew up in Oceanside and I had no idea what college was, right? Until I started getting offers. And like, what does it mean, a college offer, right?
Right.
But what I did know is that there was somebody that looked like me and was on TV and could watch TV on Sundays because he was playing, you know, and someone that had done it and was the trailblazer, at least in my eyes, right, for my generation. And that is, you know, usually what I focus on is being a trailblazer and being someone that did things that inspired, you know, a whole generation of young kids.
That's a cool story. You know, we've all seen the video of you doing your Lambo leap. Do you remember who your first official credited tackle was against, though, in the NFL?
Oh, first official credited tackle. I have no idea.
Neither do I. I was hoping you could tell.
I thought it was a follow-up, you know?
Yeah.
No, I have no idea. I don't know. I was probably.
I'm sure one of your teammates is going to reach out and remind us. So.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was going to ask going back to kind of the virtual stuff, and you're having your team meetings like we're having them right here with a group of guys. And during the springtime and during this time of year, you kind of find it. I think you actually mentioned Caleb Tremblay early on when you first got to USC. Are there guys that kind of take over that room, the virtual room?
Guys that take over the virtual room, yeah. Well, a lot of it is well, I'll step back and just kind of how I coach and how I teach. You know, I'm a big believer in asking questions. So I ask a ton of questions during or position meetings, and you know, guys all have opportunities to speak, and like I really want to know what they know, right? But I wouldn't say there was one that has taken over the room. I would say as far as a leadership role, Marlon has stepped up and been kind of the leader, kind of second in command for me in the aspect of getting guys together. And if I wanted a message to get shout out to the guys, you know, I'll send it to him or I'll shoot it in our group text. But what I am encouraged about is the knowledge that they've been able to pick up these past, you know, 2 or 3 months. That you know, hard questions are now easy, and hard concepts are now becoming easy. So as far as someone taking over, I wouldn't say anyone's really taken over, but I'd say Marlon has become the leader.
Do you have? Is there a role you envision for his brother already?
I kind of want to just see what he can do, you know, and see what he comes in as far as weight goes. But initially he'd be starting out, at the 5 technique, being in our 4-down stuff, and then bumping into regular end in our 3-down stuff. So I want to see, what he can do immediately and where we can get him stronger.
He came a long way in the last year. It was actually impressive to watch. He looked really good at the volleyball.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited.
I got a 2-part question. One, did you have to arm wrestle Coach Orlando for Drake Jackson, and did he win?
Oh yeah, one, I did not arm wrestle Coach Orlando, but if we did, he would not have won.
Okay.
But he's that's the headman, man. He does what he wants. I'm kind of the backup, the bodyguard type deal for him. So
Right.
yeah.
It was just fun watching him as a freshman on the D line, and now we're going to see him playing it more, from a linebacker position. So I was excited to see what you were going to be able to do with him, and I'm sure you guys will still be working together. But watching him move to the linebacker end spot more is going to be interesting. But who are some of the lesser spoken or heralded guys on the defensive line that you're looking forward to, or the Trojan fans should really keep an eye on this year?
Yeah, I'm really excited about all our guys. I'm excited to get to work with the young guys. But I would say one guy I'm really, really excited about is Jake Lichtenstein. I want to see what he can do. He's really good at taking pictures on the beach with his shirt off.
He's got
Yeah.
big, man.
He looks really good, right? So, again, he was one that was coming back from injury. So my injury history was, I was able to, level with him there and understand, where he's coming from and all the insecurities of getting back into, playing. So I'm encouraged to see, what he can do and to help him gain confidence in his body again and moving and playing defensive line at a high level.
Yeah, he looked like he's totally bought into the whole weight training program and everything. But, he's big. Another guy I know you mentioned at your introduction press conference was Caleb Tremblay was one of the first names you mentioned.
Yeah.
What does he bring to the table that working along with Jay Tufeles and the guys, the names we hear about?
Right. So Caleb, I think the biggest thing for Caleb is experience. He's had experience in some big games, and it shows in his training at home. So he's probably the most consistent lifter, on our entire team. He posts everything, and has a makeshift gym in his garage that he just gets after it, and he really loves the process. And so with him, him being a guy that can move, whether 5 technique or 3 technique, all over the defensive line, is someone that I think will do some really good things this year. And he knows and that he has high expectations for me. And I'm sure everyone in the defensive line room, is tired of me telling them this, but I tell them there are no starters. Like, you come in and you compete. I want to see you compete. If you have not played, then go out and win a spot and take playing time. If you have played, then somebody's coming for you, because that was the lesson I learned in the NFL. Is there's always somebody coming, and there's always somebody you got to outrun or you got to chase to catch. And so helping them understand that the constant competition, that this isn't he's been this, so he's going to be that forever. It's a clean slate. You've been training your ass off, and you come back and you're ready to go, and you're beating out dudes, and you're going to play. I'm not the guy that plays favorites or does all the politicking, man. I'm a simple football coach that just likes offensive linemen going backwards and quarterbacks getting planted. So that's
There you go. And we just had Brandon Sosna on, and for us, it's been impressive to watch what has happened since Mike Vaughn was hired. in November, and the support that we're seeing that they're giving the football program and the athletic program. How are you as a coach feeling that support from the athletic department?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Just anything that we need, for our guys, they've gotten. And Coach Helton says this all the time. They've never said no, and having that support is unbelievable. It's a great, tool for our guys. But then as a position coach, it's like, it gives you that extra push. Like, man, well, I really, really want to win. It's not there are some places where it's kind of one against the other, floors against floors, administration versus athletics. But here it's been very refreshing and very encouraging and motivating to have the support that we have at SC.
To me, it's stunning on how fast things were turned around, and part of that goes to you as a coaching staff. And is there? I don't want to say things turned around overnight, because there's a lot of good people that were at USC that are still there, and a lot of guys on offense. But was there, when you guys got together as a staff for the first time, was there a method to recruiting, an approach that you all are kind of consistent with?
I wouldn't say there's a method. There's more of an energy. I think sitting in that first staff meeting, you just feel everybody wanted to go. Like you're at the starting line of a race, and then things are revving up and you're just ready to take off. It felt more like that than a planned method. I think as a position coach, and especially on defense, we have some great recruiters, and I'm a competitive dude. And so you see guys landing guys, it's like, you're happy for your brother and all that, but at the same time, I'm competitive, and so I want to go out and get the best D lineman that I can find. And so it's been kind of that whole feel, so to speak, as far as it goes with recruiting. It's been a battle, and one that you want to just get after, and in a race that you want to just go out and run, with our staff.
Are there boxes that you have to check off with the kids that you're recruiting in order to have basically sign off on them?
Yeah, I think there's obviously measurables. Everybody has a certain measurable that they want to hit. Who they are as a person, a lot of background of, what makes them tick. Do they love football, right?
Yes.
A lot of these guys look good, but then they don't really love the game. They love retweets and likes, right? So do they love football? And then academically, we're at one of the best institutions in the country. And do they love academics? And so you kind of go through this list of things, and it narrows down the pool really of who you're really going after. And it just goes, by class and by position of what we need and where we're going. And yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but there is a checklist. Yeah.
Actually, and you kind of touched on it, narrowing of the pool. What's the difference between your recruiting base at Virginia and when you're recruiting for USC? Do you start with a group, or is it just the same group, or is there a select group that you now move on to? I'm not putting down Virginia per se, but I think
I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier as far as USC's reputation and the worldwide brand that USC is. It just makes more players interested in USC.
Okay.
And so you take Virginia, they're known for basketball and academics, and we were fighting that battle the last 4 years to have football be relevant, which it's trending in the right direction. As far as SC, it's football, You think SC again, you think of all the Trojan heroes that have gone through here.
Right.
And so it wasn't the same pool. It's just, I think there was a bigger net because everybody knows the brand. And so there were more options, or not so much options, but there were more players that go through and watch and look at, because there are a lot of players that are interested in USC.
Does it make saying no more difficult?
Yeah, I think, no, I think anytime you say no, it's difficult, especially when you build relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want to win a national title, And if I'm not holding myself in my position to that standard, then there's a weakness. There's a break in the chain, And so saying no always sucks. But understanding why you're doing it, and the end goal in mind, I think it's just something that just has to happen.
But maybe this is even a more difficult question. Which is harder, saying no or saying you're next? Wait.
I don't know. I haven't had the year next yet. I've been fortunate enough to just say yes or no. So haven't had that problem yet.
I guess
were there any kids when you first contacted them from USC that were like, "You're at USC now, coach"?
No, I think everybody knew. A lot of guys reached out to me before I reached out to them, in all honesty. And then, showing the guys I'm the same dude at Virginia at USC that I was at Virginia, and kind of build deeper relationships, because nothing changed as far as our relationship, but the opportunity was bigger, for them.
I think I only have one more question before, you want to get on and be with your family and maybe be a PE teacher for the day. Have you learned anything new about the team during this time away that maybe surprised you, or you're like, wow, I had no idea I had this in my room?
Yeah, the hunger. Like, I didn't think, or I didn't know how much, my room, how much they love football. And, being away and being just in meetings, you could tell guys, or which guys love football and are hungry to get back at it. Where there are some guys that, kind of just like being away, and not having any accountability. There's guys in our room that are just really, really hungry and really want to get out there and play, and get better, and get stronger and faster, and go out and compete.
Love hearing that.
I have one really important question.
Yeah.
Has Craig Nyber offered you guys brisket when you guys returned? I'm looking at what he's smoking, man. You talked about brisket early on. I thought, man, Craig Nyber.
I know Craig's got a lot of grilling and smoking to do once he gets back. We get back all together, but he has not officially offered yet. But I think the staff as a whole has already taken up an offer from him, because we talk about it all the time. Yeah.
Coach, before you go, I just spent some time digging through your Pro Football Reference page. Your first tackle in the regular season was Lorenzo Booker in November of 2011.
Oh,
Deserved it.
Booker. Yeah, I remember.
Southern California.
Yeah, he's from out here. I remember he was a really good player.
He almost became a Trojan before he went to Florida State.
Florida State. Yeah, we got to lock those guys down out here.
You remember your first regular season sack?
First regular season sack. I only had one, so it was Stafford.
Yep, Matthew Stafford. New Year's Day.
Yeah, New Year's Day. My dad, funny story, my dad came to Green Bay, and he didn't pack any winter clothes, and I didn't know that. And so it's January first night game, and he goes to the game in shorts and sandals and a t-shirt.
Oh,
Man.
Stuck it out, sat over there, and my brother-in-law was there, and yeah, he's a tough sucker.
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I don't know if we want to take it any further. I think we should just end it on that great anecdotal story. That is awesome. Scott, unless you've got something.
Well, I've got all kinds of questions, but we'll ask that at another time.
Well, I appreciate it. You guys are awesome.
Coach,
Hey,
no,
thank you.
for spending this
Coach.
time, and